Okay, welcome everybody to episode 2 of Hallway Digressions. Many thought that we couldn't do it, that we couldn't break into the number 2 episode range. And I read a stat earlier this week that said that if you get past episode 1, then you have a 90% chance of a long life for your podcast. You guys come across that stat anywhere?
Wow, no.
I totally just made
when
that
you
up.
said episode 1, I was thinking Star Wars.
It sounded impressive.
I don't know.
Well,
Just
make it past episode 1, Star Wars. Then,
Oh,
Jar Jar. Then chances are
you got a 90%
if you
chance
survive
of becoming
the
a
pod
fan.
race, yeah,
yes.
that goes on. Wait, isn't that the whole movie?
Yeah. If you survive the pod race, then you get to look forward to seeing Hayden Christensen play.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Hey, fellas, you'll appreciate this shout out that I'm going to give to one of our students. So over in the LP Youth Zoom on Wednesday nights, we've been blessed by the virtual presence of one McKenna Stone.
Mm.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. So she's been chiming in through the East Coast. And I mentioned we were talking about highlights and lowlights of the last week, and I said that recording this episode 1 was like a highlight of my week. Like I genuinely enjoyed the conversation with you guys in the fellowship, and she said she loved the podcast. So we've broken out of Indiana
Wow.
with only one episode.
At least there's one.
We're exactly. No one needs to see the numbers; they just need to see the reach.
Yeah.
That's great. We've got listeners in Myrtle Beach now. That's awesome.
That's right. That's right.
Ignore
long,
those YouTube analytics. Yeah, just don't
come
go
on.
there. Yeah.
No. I pick and choose what I want to look at to define our success.
Yes.
So cheers to the Stones out on the East Coast.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. And hey, one other thing that we do want to say out loud before we dive into some other content for this week is any students, any parents really, we'll take questions from parents too, but anybody listening that wants to suggest something for us to I was going to say rant or chat about or laugh about, I suppose. If you want to throw any talking points out, if you want to throw any questions out, if you want to submit an article to us to look at and to ruminate over, you're welcome to send those in. Just email them to me at ljohnson@lakewoodpark.org. And yeah, we'll see if we get any crowd feedback since we're such a booming program now.
That's right.
Going what do you call it? Transcontinental? Are we quite transcontinental or
Transcontinental? Like
Wait. All we have are McKenna Stone. I don't think she's in another continent. Although South Carolina could be.
What do we call it?
Could be.
What are we? Across the country?
Interstate.
Interstate?
national. It's nationally. Or wait. Would it be? It's
international?
Yeah.
We're not international. Gentlemen, we are quickly losing credibility as any reputable source on anything. So let's.
It's episode 2. What do you expect?
Episode 2. Yeah. We've only had a week to prepare for this one. Okay. So how's home life this week? Any updates on what's going on in your homes? Any stories about parenting, marriage, life together with your immediate family? Brett, you got anything going on?
Yeah. Well, first of all, so I told you guys, so I think I wore this to school once, but just in case you're wondering, like, what in the world? So remember our conversation last week. So Luke, didn't you say you were digressing and going back to your Saturday morning as a kid days, eating cereal? So that's right. My heart obviously resonated with that. So I actually wear this for 2 reasons. So serial killer, because I love cereal. But we actually the last 2 nights
and the double meaning.
Yeah, of course. Win-win. So last night, or the last 2 nights, Brittany and I watched a documentary on, not to make it a dark term, but it is Jeffrey Dahmer. So there's a 2-part documentary on Jeffrey Dahmer, and a lot of it is based on an interview with him. So from his own, mouth. You guys, you have to check it out if you're interested in that kind of thing. And I'll just say, so spoiler, I didn't know this, but evidently, he claims he surrendered his life to Christ.
Really?
In prison. And when you heard him in the interview, I don't know. I mean, it sounded, he gave some good answers.
Really?
About can his sins be forgiven? And he was talking about the blood of Jesus Christ on the cross. And I mean, it was almost one of those moments where it was kind of hit you there a little bit, because it's like, wow, I mean, of course he deserved his sentences, which was like 900 some years or so, or yeah, it was something like that. But yeah. So anyway, I didn't know that, but anyway, I find those stories fascinating. And just like with Ted Bundy, you hear his words. This guy, he was sane, and he knew what he was doing. And he, often I think our culture, because we come from the humanistic perspective so we're inherently good, so what happens then when we see people like Jeffrey Dahmer or Ted Bundy? Well, we have to put them into some different category, that they're different than us. They're somehow anomalies, when I don't think they were, which is kind of the scary thing. But it shows us the reality of sin. When we embrace our sin and indulge in it, it's going to progress and lead us to more and more. And you can see that in both of their lives, not only in their lives, but they say it from their own mouths before they died. Anyway, okay, so yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah,
is that Netflix?
No, we have Amazon, and so it was somehow through that. It was on like Oxygen or something. Whatever that is. I don't know.
Isn't that I don't know, make it start.
Yeah. And I even said one of those old jokes too, about Dahmer. Brittany was like, "Are you serious?" And I was like, "You never heard that old joke." So I don't know if I should.
You say, "No, I'm cereal."
No, it was, did you hear that they found what they found in the shower? And she's like, "What?" I said, "Head and Shoulders." Like, "Are you serious?" And so, yeah, the shampoo. So that's why I was like, okay. I remember that from like 4th grade anyway. So, well, hey, to get out of this dark subject.
So how are we segueing into your home here?
Yeah. I'm losing my mind.
Well, his shirt is a confession. He has bodies in his basement. We saw that in the last video.
Yeah, right.
You guys said this was hallway confessions, so
yes,
thank
that's
you.
Right. So,
so actually,
send this video to the authorities.
Yeah, right.
We talked about the stimulus check a little bit last week. So let me just tell you guys. So what's been happening this week? I'll try and make it quick. Just a lot of our stimulus money, I think, is going to Disney in support of Frozen, with the new Frozen craze. And
cheers.
I'll just briefly. Here's the basement tour part 2. I got to show you guys this because it's pretty cool. So
now, also Brett, do you remember that we have broken the glass ceilings into Spotify? So we're not just doing good video on YouTube, we're also doing good radio. So use your adjectives. Let the people see with their ears.
Make sure to narrate
as you take us on this tour.
Yes.
Okay, so as we make our way out into the playroom, into the dream house, actually, you can see one of the little Slofers is out here right now. But,
that one's moving.
Special guest. Special guest.
He is. Well, let me show you guys. So here's some new additions. Here is how we are. Say hi real quick. Mackenzie. So here's how we are adding to. So we've got a lot of these. They're like you see them at Walmart. They're like Barbie dolls, but they're Disney, and they got all kinds of characters. I think. Yeah. Okay. So these new ones that we got. You have to order them. You have to order them online. You can only get them online because they're limited. So they actually have. Yeah, they actually have. It's the parents of Elsa and Anna. So they have their parents, and then
how do you play with those?
Me or her? They're different.
I think they drowned on a ship, right? So
thank you.
That's how you play with them. We're drowning.
It came in a package, and I was like, "Where's the boat?" It's ready to come on now. So yeah, like here's and it's the little Elsa and the little Anna, and so like you would not. I mean, I guess I'll go ahead and tell you. These like this package of these, because it was like limited and only online, it was like $40 for these things. Yes. And then that's not the end of it.
You need to buy another set for yourself. Keep it in the box.
Yeah, right.
For 20 years from now, sell it.
So check these out. These just came. These are Elsa. Wait, we got Elsa and Anna.
Is that a head?
These are Elsa and Anna scalps. I mean wigs that we got. So you can see the little braid here on the Anna, and yeah. So $20 a piece.
$20 per wig.
Yes. I mean,
wow.
I don't know.
Brett, which one do you wear?
This one looks a little more natural on me.
Yeah, natural. Yeah. You're not all the way.
I don't really wear them. I mean, would it be creepy if we just like hung these on the wall? I mean, we defeated Arendelle, kind of a thing. I don't know.
Okay. That was you in the 80s, right? You put your earring in.
No,
put that on.
Yeah. No, it was. I did. I had the shaved up to here kind of a thing. So it was. Yeah, and so we didn't just get this. We've had it, but here's.
Oh wow, that's like a life-size Sven.
Yeah, just about. And he check this out.
With Carrot.
Well, he usually talks. They must have shut him off, and it's really weird.
You weren't playing about that stimulus check going to Frozen 2.
No. Well, this one was a Christmas present, but I was trying to get him to talk. Here we go. Maybe. No, I guess because sometimes it's really weird. I'll be like upstairs and nobody's down here, and it's all dark, and it's like, I need a snack. It's kind of creepy. So
reindeer are better than people.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's been our week.
Okay. So Nick, you wanna compete with that?
No, I do not. I have. Wow.
You had a normal week.
Yeah. It was so exciting because I installed toilets this week. So. Ooh, wow. Yeah, really exciting stuff. But with the family, we've just been like kind of alternating. Every other week we have like a family night together, and so we've been like going back and forth between movies and games. And last week we had like a family hide and go seek in the dark game, so that went on for a couple hours, so that was a whole lot of fun because in our new house we have a lot more places to hide. So and then in the dark you get to bring your kids to the hospital after that. So that did not happen, although we have like all of our picture frames and stuff in the middle of the living room floor, and I still don't know to this day how nobody stepped on those or broke their ankle on them, or I don't know. Yeah.
Was that in there so you could like hear if somebody was hiding in the living room? Like,
yeah, I know.
You could hear the broken glass of the screen.
Yeah, that and the bear trap in the other room.
And then there's Legos on the floor.
Yeah, just sprinkling Legos.
That's right.
This'll get them.
That would be all it would take. Yeah, that's a good
it.
idea, actually.
Yeah.
I'm going to do that next time. Yeah. Watch out, kids. Yeah.
Nice. So toilets and hide and go seek. Sounds like a good week.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think we definitely call that a win-win. The two of those things paired together. Yeah. Awesome.
How about you, Luke?
Yeah. So I saw a meme from that Instagram account, The Dad, and he was talking about like quarantine day, like 486. And we may have even said this last time. I don't even know. I can't distinguish between what's real memory and what's not real memory. I can't tell between reality and not. But he said, at this point in the quarantine, the only way to tell time is dark time and loud time. And I feel like that's where we're at. Like there's just no distinguishing between days or seasons or times outside of, is it dark out or is it loud out? But this is a funny story. So Josh, our 4-year-old, he just has these outlandish requests at like the worst times ever, which is typically bedtime when we're trying to get him to bed.
Yes.
And he'll just, he started doing this thing where as you're walking out the door, like you got it open, you're sliding out, you're about to get it shut, and then it'll be like, hey, Dad, one more question. And so, all right, Josh, one more question. That's it. Just one last question. And he just starts saying these crazy things. And so, like last night, this is what he said. He said, Dad, I need you to buy me watermelon and a cupcake. Watermelon and a cupcake. Those were his demands. Now, I'll say the perk of this is somehow he's become totally satisfied with the answer later. So all we have to say is later, and he'll say, okay, thank you, and lay down. So I said later, he said, okay, thank you, and he laid down. And so yeah, I suppose that's about it.
You know, chances are though later you really will. I'm sure bring a watermelon.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
At some point,
I'll get him watermelon at some point. Yeah. I'm not signing any contractual deal of 48 hours or anything.
He has a list. He has a list next to his bed entitled "Later" and all the things.
Yeah. One day he'll call it all into account. And
Dad,
Dad,
this is what you owe me.
Now, later is now.
And then that's when you can start with the IOUs. Mm-hmm. Right, so what was that? The old Dumb and Dumber.
IOU.
See that one? That's a car.
I'm good for that. And so that's Josh at bedtime. Caleb. So we joked about how we like tricked our boys into forever staying in their rooms, and that's still true. But we have allowed Caleb the ability to use the restroom. So groundbreaking that he can use the restroom.
He's been upgraded
overnight. Yeah. So, but he knows that he better not go beyond the bathroom. But this is what he's been doing. So since he's been working in my office downstairs for his schoolwork, I've been working in the spare room as like my new like setup office, which is right next to his room. And so what I've noticed that he's been doing is he's been like leaving me gifts like on my computer. Like he'll leave like a Pokemon card.
Oh, okay. I thought that was linked to the bathroom.
He's been getting the bathroom, my office mixed up. It's been a mess. Gifts. So he'll like leave this in it. So like I'll see it in the morning, like during a meeting or something like that. And then he'll always check up later on in the day. Hey, Dad, did you see that Pokemon card I left you? Yeah, I did. Thanks, buddy. Yeah, I thought you'd like that. That's it. Yeah. So he's thoughtful. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So we're working together. Well, hey, how about you guys come across any good media lately? Anything that you've read, article, book, you reading anything good? You, I don't know. It has the theology of Frozen 2 and doing the next right thing just really been revolutionary in your home. I don't know.
I really found the toilet installation manual fascinating.
Have you ever done one before, or was Let's experiment and see if this
No,
works or not.
I have done one before. We put
Okay.
in new toilets in our other house. It's like the first thing we do, because they have these like little round toilets that you can hardly sit on top of.
Yeah, right.
They call it a throne for a reason. So I want it to be like a throne. So
I want all the amenities.
yes.
If
Give
I'm
me
going to
the
spend more
biggest
time here than
toilet you
anywhere
have.
else.
but seriously.
Speaking of which, where are you sitting right now, Nick? That cushion behind you, that's just throw us off.
That's just the added components of the toilet. You have to have a padded seats, cushioned back,
cup holder,
nice throne.
Mini fridge
TV,
next to you,
TV in front of it.
Get one of those little like TV stands that they have for like your couch while you eat meals or something like that. Get one of those for your bathroom.
These people who are slumming it and bringing their phone into the bathroom, come on. I mean, you need something bigger than
Neanderthals. It's just savages. This is how it looks to be elite.
Oh my god.
So nice.
But seriously. Oh gosh, I've been reading in the Gospel of Luke, and I came across, and I've read it before, and I've bookmarked it before, but Luke 17, verses 1 through 10 were really just a reminder to me about just our kind of attitudes during this time of quarantine. And, we can be questioning what's going on, what God's doing and all this stuff. And so just to summarize quickly, the first part of the chapter, Jesus says that, if your brother comes to you, and I think it's like, if he sins against you, multiple times, I forget the number he gives, some outlandish number in a day, you are to forgive him. And the apostles, they're like, oh Lord, increase our faith. And like, you can get their mindset like, listen, if somebody is doing the same thing and hurting me in the same way, multiple times a day, I'm going to be like, yo, dude, you don't really mean this.
Yeah.
And but the apostles got what Jesus was saying, and he's like, you're supposed to forgive. And they're like, we don't have that kind of faith. I mean, I don't have that kind of faith. Like, that's ridiculous. And then Jesus responds. It's very interesting. He says, he tells a story about, if a servant is out, planting and harvesting or working in the field, and then he comes in, will you ask the servant to sit down at the table and eat first? Or will you ask him to do what he's supposed to do, to prepare the meal and do all that? And he says, so will you do, because basically that's what's required of you as servants. And so it's very interesting that, how often we become, privileged, we think, by how God is supposed to respond. And then Jesus says, listen, when you've done all the things that were commanded to you, you're going to say, we're unprofitable servants. We have done what our duty was. And I thought that was interesting, because oftentimes we can, judge God and say, God, what are you doing here? This is crazy, and have all these expectations for what God's supposed to be doing. And Jesus says, listen, you're just servants. You're gonna be saying, I'm just an unprofitable servant. And so it's a good reminder to me, just as we go through this time, that, you know what, I don't deserve anything, and whatever I get is gravy. So,
wow, that's good. That's really good stuff. I like that. Brett, how about you?
Yeah, that's really good. Mine was from just some stuff I'm reading outside of the Bible. I'm reading in the Psalms right now for devotions, but I shared with the students that I've been reading through this again, Darwin on Trial by Philip Johnson, and if you've never gone through it, it's an excellent book. He just passed away, I think, like a year ago or within the last year, but he was kind of one of the early leading intelligent design proponents, and he was a lawyer, and so that's why he calls it On Trial. He treats it as a court case, but thorough research, very very good. This was something interesting that I had never come across. So I've been through. This was by the way, this one's special to me because it was the first book on apologetics that I ever got on creation and evolution and stuff. So
really
helped me out immensely. A lot of it I didn't understand when I first read it, because this is a long time ago, and now I can understand it a little bit better just being in the literature, after all these years, I guess. But there's the other stuff I still don't quite yet. But anyway, so yeah, this was really cool. So he was saying how natural selection is actually a tautology. And so I'll read what that is here in a second. Many of the most prominent neo-Darwinists have written at one time or another that natural selection is a tautology. It's really just a way of saying the same thing twice, which is interesting. In this formulation, the theory predicts that the fittest organisms will produce the most offspring. And it defines then the fittest organisms as the ones which produce the most offspring, so, which I never realized before. And he's got quotes of leading Darwinists in history, J.B.S. Haldane and Ernst Mayr, even George Gaylord Simpson, even talking about how that's what it is. The fittest organisms produce the most offspring. Okay, well, define fittest organism, the ones who produce the most offspring. So it's very interesting. And so yeah, I found that, like I said, fascinating. And another thing too, I guess, it doesn't matter how fit you are as far as, if I can fly or I can do something that the rest of my species can do. I could have certain traits that make me more, what do I want to say, athletic or whatever, but it's not going to matter unless I produce the most offspring. So I don't know, found that pretty interesting. I'm going to end up, we're talking about creation starting next week with the sophomores, and so I'm going to put some of that in there. So anyway, so that's I find it interesting very often when it seems like when you're reading stuff about naturalistic evolution and Darwinian theory, and the experts say and they say, we always talk like that. Once you start reading the stuff, it's like, wow, there's some big words being used, some impressive language being used. But once you define the big words and you understand what the impressive language is actually saying, more often than not, it turns out being not so impressive. It's kind of one of those things that's like, oh, that's what you're saying, or that's what you believe. So, what you're saying is non-living chemicals somehow came alive at some point, so I try to encourage the students, don't be scared away by the impressive language. And because I can pull out my biology textbook right now from college and I'll start reading through and it's like, wow, it sounds like that's true. But then when you kind of start to unpack it, it turns out being something that's more like a fairy tale. So anyway,
and we're all teachers, so we all know once we start getting confused, we just use big words that our kids don't understand.
Exactly, and say it with a confident and passionate tone, and expression.
Just a pretentious chuckle. Oh, that was cute.
One day you'll understand.
Some big words, and then we go read an article to figure out what the right answer is.
Yes. I'm kidding. You're going to be using those big words soon, right, Doctor?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Congrats on that, by the way.
Yeah, thanks.
So next week you'll have your pocket watch, and
so that's right.
Your pipe.
So, I don't know if you saw this on the post. So I update my my schooling information or whatever with the going to the doctoral program or whatever. The first response is Dr. Tiberius Ratza.
I saw that.
The man, the myth, the legend, Old Testament thoroughbred out of Grace, and a friend indeed. And he was the first to comment, and his comment was, "Really?" ? Now,
Like,
that the inflection obviously is perceived on my end because it was just letters. It could have been really, but also my first read of it was like, really, like, oh man, maybe I'm not ready for this.
really, like, it was really like, what's happening to my school? Like, they let you in.
Who are they letting in here? Yeah, this one didn't come through my desk. So yeah, so fast. So I've been reading. And when I say reading, I don't really mean reading with my eyeballs, but listening on Audible, an audiobook, Huxley's Brave New World. And that's one of those classics that I've read a bunch of articles about, but never actually read myself. So I was like, oh, it was free on Audible for like their, I don't know, their like educational store or whatever, where they have like free classics. And I was like, I should give this a run because I've read a lot of articles. I feel like I've got the general gist of it, but I feel like I should just do this. And went better than now. So, so it's just really fascinating because the slavery of people doesn't come through fear. It comes through pleasure. And by keeping people addicted to the pursuit of pleasure, they remain enslaved to the system. And there was one article that I came across where it was 1984 versus Brave New World, is which one seemed to be the more prophetic cultural assessment or whatever. And they were talking about how we seem to be a people who have succumbed to the enslavement of pleasure rather than fear of like the system or whatever. And so it's been really fascinating. Just to think about that, to think about the culture that we live in which, we just have so much and everything just, by a click of a button through Amazon, and it's there in 2 days. And if it's not there in 2 days, then we've been, we're suffering, and we felt that as Amazon went down a little bit and we had to wait longer than 2 days for stuff, for our essential or non-essential, however you want to define it, needs and whatnot. And so I don't know, I think it's just been a very thought-provoking read in light of this season in which all of our sources of pleasure, many of them have been removed. Like our ability to eat food has been changed because of things closing down. So it's been interesting. It's been an interesting read, and I'd recommend the free listen to anybody listening on Audible. So.
And for those who don't know, I know you guys do. Huxley was an atheist and a very honest one. I would say, and not that I'm suggesting if you're an atheist you're dishonest, but what I mean by that is he truly understood most of the implications of his atheism, I would say, and where that leads as far as morality goes. I don't have it right now, but I can remember in some of the Nick, you remember in some of the summit material for Bible 12, there was a quote by him and his honesty about his atheism and one of the what do I want to say? One of the strong or what made it so attractive was its freedom then in the area of sexuality. Or you can probably think of which quote I was thinking. It was he had stated it very well, and I was like, wow, at least he's being very, he's thought this through and he gets it and he understands it, rather than I just don't believe in God. It was kind of like the Madman poem or whatever, right? He understood the implications of the atheism and how, even though he still wanted to embrace it and go with it, he understood it was going to cause some problems for society and culture. But so Huxley, he's I remember reading that back. I think we had to read it at Taylor. You didn't read it at Taylor, Luke?
No, but I didn't finish at Taylor either. They shut down before I got out, so I may have not gotten to that class or that level. So.
Okay.
Let's transition into the main event here with the overwhelming amount of time that we have left. I don't know. I guess I've just been thinking a lot about the ways in which the church might be impacted by this quarantine virtual church season, And so yeah, so I thought I'd be interested to hear from you guys and for us to think together. Um, in what ways do we anticipate this quarantine virtual church impacting the church? And is there something to like a theology of proximity, a theology of being close together and being physically present with each other? Is there something there that we need to be talking about? Is there any reason that people shouldn't just go on just watching something on their screen through their church on Facebook Live when we're able to meet together? So maybe just some initial thoughts from you guys on that, and maybe we can dive into some other questions as well. Yeah, or thoughts about it.
Yeah, I think, as I was thinking about this, I think that what we're doing right now with, virtual church really is what a lot of people have always done in person. I don't think the mindset is really all that different. They attend for the show on Sunday and then, bolt for the door. So now people, tune in for the stream and then shut off the TV or shut off the phone. And it's kind of the same kind of mindset. I'm there for the performance and the performance is over. Okay, I'm done. But I think something is, and I think, well, I hope, let me put it that way. I hope that we're realizing that we miss something when we don't connect with people. That there's a reason why we're calling it, virtual church, that it's simulated church rather than the real deal. And because church isn't, as you guys know, church isn't the service, but the people. And so without the interaction of the people, it's really not gathering of the church. It's virtual church. So it's a virtual gathering rather than the real thing. And so I think to not go back to meeting in person is to settle for, a shadow of reality rather than, the real substance, to accept something that's, virtual reality rather than, what we really need and want.
Yeah, that's good. Those are really good thoughts. Really good thoughts. How about you, Brett?
Yeah, I think appreciate that, Nick, and hearing you say that. It's really, I guess, if so, I'm thinking of somebody who, like you said, they always do that, and or if it's a person who doesn't and who's used to going to church. I would say really, if I were to think that, well, I could just continue this virtual church, it's really a lot like what we're experiencing with school in the classroom, isn't it? For at least for us, for students or for teachers, we see there is just an element that's really missing there. And my goodness, on Facebook, I see it all over. I can't wait to get back. I miss my students so much, and I can't wait to get back to normal and all this. Well, if that's going to be the case with things like school and the classroom, of course it's going to be like that with church as well. And I think even to a more significant level, I've been blessed to be able to, for the past few weeks, go to church because we're just defying the law. No, I'm just kidding. we're fortunately, we are able to meet at our secondary place in Churubusco, and it's our building. We don't have our normal services there. We meet at the school, but we meet at our building. There's about 7 of us, and we stream the service. And I wasn't doing that for the first few weeks that we had to start doing that. And of course I missed it, but I didn't realize until I got there, and I was there with even just 7 people. I was like, man, when I left, it was like I needed that. I needed that to be in, even though we were distancing, but there was really something that I realized I had been missing. And I think when we're away from church, it sort of subtly maybe, if it's the right word, desensitizes us to that need that we actually all have or should have in the body of Christ, and that's to be gathering together, and to there's just something about it that's different than worshiping on your own or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That's really good too. Yeah. So when I started thinking about this, I suppose it kind of came in a couple different waves, and each wave kind of had like a different angle to it. But so I was thinking about like, what is the role of physical touch and physical interaction that we experience like outside of church and the gathering of people, and I was just allowing that to like see a little bit of God's creation design. And a couple days ago, my sister-in-law, my wife's sister, she has had her first baby, and so like super exciting. And so they have one of the pictures that they sent us. They're down in Texas. But one of the pictures they sent us was of my sister-in-law and a little baby girl, just on her. They do the skin to skin time. I mean, we've all got kids. We know that like as soon as baby pops out, you dry it off, give it a 1-2 look over or whatever, and then you put it on for the skin to skin. And I was thinking about that, and so I actually looked at like some of the things that happens with skin to skin. And for the baby, it says that better able to absorb and digest nutrients, better body temperature, cries less often, demonstrates improved weight gain, more stable heartbeat and breathing, higher blood oxygen levels, long-term benefits such as improved brain development function, as well as parental attachment. They sleep better at night, better thermoregulation, stronger immune system. So all of these like really physically healthy things are correlated to the skin to skin time. And I think about even within obviously the marriage of one man, one woman, that like physical intimacy is something that like cannot be replaced virtually. There's something in God's design that is supposed to be happening in the physical presence of one another. And so I think that's been just kind of like this interesting thought about just our need in some of our other familial relationships. And then considering the church is a family, we're supposed to be a family. When I go there, I'm with brothers and sisters in Christ. I think about what Paul says, that younger men are to treat their older women as mothers, and younger women as sisters in all purity, and things like that. And as I was thinking through this, I actually gave the chapter on physicality a read from this book, Sensing Jesus by Zach Eswine. I read it years ago when it came out, but I thought I'd read it again and check this out. This is one of the things that he talks about, the role of physical touch within the family of God, and the need for it to be there, obviously like appropriately. And we know that we live in a world where there's so many abuses of what is appropriate. But we can't over counter the pendulum where there's something that needs to happen there. And so he talks about how he had to go visit, he went to go visit Betty, who was this old lady in his church. He's a young pastor, and Betty is this older widow. And it was the anniversary of her husband's death. He died 20 years before her. She asked if we could sit and talk for a moment. All of a sudden, the dam broke and the tears poured through. She crumpled into a small couch there in the greeting area. He says that we sat, she wept. My shoulder held her fatigued head and bolstered her heaving torso. I did not know what else to do, and I prayed while she cried. Then let me read this next paragraph, because it just really, I think, impacted me. He says this: it turns out that there was nothing else to do. I had not imagined before how little a widow experiences touch as it was meant to be. Family members live at a distance and visit sporadically. Beyond the pokes of medical people, the elderly often enter a famine of touch, as if dwelling in the desert years of their lives. Upon whose shoulder does a widow lean when she grieves the loss of her husband she loved? Only once was I that shoulder for Betty, and that is probably how it should be. But it reminded me that the role that we play for one another in community. My shoulder was safe and strong, For a moment, it brotherly pillowed her genuine grief. I hope one day a gospel shoulder might kindly let me lean upon it amid my own fainting for the loved one I lost, as I too wait for heaven's glad reunion in Jesus to find me. And so I think that also helped me as well to think about like some of the folks, like, you know, we have our family in our homes, but not everybody does. And right now, like, there might be some widows, some elderly, some single people that are living on their own, that might be missing out on some of the familial interactions that God designed us to have, that the church supplies where there's lack within a particular home. Is that making sense? Any thoughts on that, or responses from you guys? Or
I think it's well, there was a lot in that really good and stuff. I don't think I think we don't often think about it and make those connections. And you talking about the baby and things like that. Interesting. I talked about the Dahmer documentary that we watched, and they had brought up that because they're trying to figure this guy out. And they brought up the fact that as a baby, he really wasn't touched or held that much, and it had something to do with he had some physical, or maybe he was born early or something, and the mom was like, just don't, didn't want people touching him, even herself. So they were trying to figure out, did that have something to do with it? But it just got me thinking about, I know there's been all kinds of studies even with monkeys. And like they have that physical contact, or is it with like some kind of some sort of a robot mom?
Yeah, they put like a metal monkey figure, and and what they like died or were didn't do well. They didn't do well. I remember that. Yeah.
Right. It's very interesting stuff. So it does. It seems like we've been designed to need that, or to make that a normal part of our existence, and our reality, and we can even see this again in other areas outside of Christianity and the church. I'm thinking about more recently I've seen on like CNN and stuff, there's people that are standing, well, not right now because of COVID, but there would be people like standing outside on the sidewalk in New York, and it was like free hugs for LGBTQ people or something like that, free dad hugs or free mom hugs, and like people thought, oh wow, that's really great. And I'll be vulnerable again here for a second, but I even in my own life, let's say in the past, Brittany and I we got into a fight or something, and it's cold shoulder for a day or two or whatever, and there isn't a lot of that physical touch. And I think I'm okay until either one of my girls comes and hugs me, or until the next time Brittany and I hug, and then it's like, wow, I needed that. It was like it did something. It was like, oh my goodness, I missed that. It's weird, but I don't know, just from my own personal experience.
Yeah. Huh. That's good. Yeah, and I think even as I'm thinking about what you were saying, Nick, as well, just the fake, virtual is not the real thing. It's an alternative. And just how we're still able to like manipulate our backgrounds on Zoom, and put, I was looking at Zoom backgrounds actually during some of my office hours, and Zoom, their website, they offer a bunch of backgrounds that are like clean, polished offices and stuff like that. And it's just like creating that facade that's not the real thing. And how we still have the ability to like present ourselves in an inauthentic way, yet when you're together in real proximity, you can't do that. I mean, even with like sharing a common bad smell together is something that's like experienced together, and and so the screen distances you. So if I smell a bad smell, if you smell a bad smell or whatever, we are disconnected because we're not sharing even the the common smell together. And so I think there's a lot of facets to this, and to the authenticity, the real shared experience. Even, I mean, we work with people, and you guys, I mean, you know that when you sit and you're talking with someone, with a student who's struggling, you see more than just the words that come out of their mouths, or whatever their scream. You see the leg that keeps bouncing up and down. You see the hands that keep fidgeting. You see, the flushness in cheeks. You see all of those things that you just can't grab through a screen as easily. And so you're less able to really, I think, interpret and discern and be able to lovingly minister to people in it. Nick, you were going to say something?
I was going to say, and that's incredibly difficult. Virtual is easy, as you said. We can manipulate the background, show people what we want to see, what we want them to see. But man, think about how many people really, really know me and know the inner recesses of my mind and my heart. And who really knows that? I mean, my spouse, maybe my kids as they get older. But man, to think about that, I mean, that is terrifying for most of us to be that open and that vulnerable. I think is incredibly, I'm speaking for myself, but I think for many people as well. I mean, that's incredibly difficult just to bear ourselves open and allow people to see into that.
Nick, I don't remember when this came up. We were at school, but we had been talking about something that had come up about just sort of this rise of anxiety issues in our culture and in the world today, and a possible link between so much use of social media and how that seems to be taking the place of real face-to-face relationships, in-person relationships.
I would say media in general.
What's that?
I would say media in general.
Yeah.
Media screens in general lead to, more our brain being, overstimulated, and lead to that, that anxiety that has been produced with it. So not even I would say the social, I would agree with you that the social aspects, where we can just worry about what people think about us on social media, but also combine that with media and what it does to our physical brains as well, I think contributes to that anxiety.
Yeah. And it does it, and it makes you wonder, and I'm sure there's probably studies on this, but maybe a lot of the anxiety comes from, we're so used to that safe virtual reality, and then when we get out into actual reality is where the anxiety comes, and having to be in school and to have people really see you and just be around, so sort of the social anxiety, and then having to get up and speak in front of the class or whatever. It makes me wonder if getting so used to the virtual and the social media cripples us then when it comes to actual reality. And if that's true, then that would seem to indicate that that's not right to be lacking of that real physical in-person relationship.
Yeah, that's a good insight. Yeah,
that's really good. It's really good.
I was intrigued by it. It seems like this isn't just something that we need, but that, as I will honestly say, when you sent us the theology of proximity, I was like, okay, I need some more information on that. So I Googled it, and there's an interesting article about how this isn't just our need, but this is our God's need, that Jesus in his flesh Mark 3 talks about the apostles and him calling the apostles to them to send them out and give them authority. But the interesting thing about it is a very quick statement, and it says, and he called them to be with him and to send them out in authority. So it's interesting that that Jesus also valued, right, them just being with him, and that presence and that relationship of just being together was really interesting to me.
That's really good. No, that's really good. And we see Jesus calling his disciples to be with him, but then I think of just all the times that Jesus healed. We have occasions where he would heal from a distance, from afar. He's God, so we know that he can do that. But how many times do we see him touching the eyes of the blind person, touching the ears of the deaf person, touching the leper in his healing process? And he didn't need to do that, and he still did that, and chose that physical touch for some reason in the midst of his healing. And I think there's something for us in that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
What a validation! What a validation of the humanity of the leper, right? For him to to break all those boundaries when they are calling out as they should, unclean, but he touches them, right, to heal them. Man, that's
it's good stuff.
And validation of his humanity too. I wonder if there was something in Jesus, that as a human that
yes, right.
Well, but I love that story, because as you guys have heard it before, of course, what normally would happen is the leprosy would infect the person who touched the leper, but Jesus infected, so to speak, leper and being clean. It's a good testimony of deity then. So
that's good.
Right.
Nice. Well, hey, gentlemen, we've probably gone a little bit longer than we did last week. So even though I said maybe we could go like 35-ish minutes, and here we are. But
I don't even know. How long has it been? I'm on quarantine time right now.
Yeah. Dark time and loud time.
Right.
Yeah, and you know what? And
sun's still up.
I've got the time rolling here on my clock.
Woo!
And I tell you what, I saw it and I just didn't care. This is why I just didn't care. Number one, the conversation's been dang good, fellas, and so I've enjoyed it, and I didn't want to stop it. And the second thing is, the people listening, you got the time, so I don't need to acquiesce to your short attention span, and I'll say it. Huh?
That's right. And they can always listen to this at 2 times the speed anyway. That's
right. That's right. And the irony is the people who are even hearing this part right now are the people who went the distance. So cheers to you if you're hearing us rail on the people who bowed out 10 minutes in.
Cheers to you.
Cheers to you. Cheers to you. All right. And with that, we say so long with episode 2.